Raise your hand up in the air if you feel like you've been betrayed. Why are all the hands up in the air? Because we have been. The media had betrayed us. The system had betrayed us. There are so many institutions that we used to trust, but now we don't. And it got there, slowly, creepingly, and then it fell like a house of cards. Because lies build on lies, and the small lies turn into big lies and it explodes. And I want to talk about betrayal, but when there is so much betrayal all over the place, I think it's time to stop and think. Even when it comes to betrayal, there are levels of severity. And I'm going to rank them from, those kind of betrayals that could be dismissed as, okay, those are just idiots, to, oh, damn, that hurts. That really hurts, kind of betrayal. And when I say betrayal, I don't talk about your spouses or your love life, just to make it clear. In my channel, we talk about geopolitics and the bigger picture. Though everything affects our personal life and the way we interact with each other on a personal level as well. I want to add a little bit of an asterisk. The reasons we are seeing so much betrayal is because the price of betrayal is very low right now. So on one hand, we have a very pluralistic, tolerant society. On the other hand, we have people that would do anything to get their goals. And those who are part of the tolerant group, they can get the benefits from those who would do anything and not get punished by those who tolerate everything. Keep that in mind. All right, let's dive in. Level 1, 2, 3, 5. I had drawn 5 levels of betrayal, hamsa, as they say, so that we wouldn't be betrayed. Maybe using 5 will protect us from the devil's eye or whatever superstitions you believe in. I'm sorry. Level 1, I would say it's unaware betrayal. And its lowest form, I would say, it's when you lose your focus. There are people who are in the same boat with us, and then there are people who are not. There are ideologies that could be tolerated, and then there are ideologies that are not. So the lowest form of betrayal is when you start kind of picking each other in the boat you're in. But that distracts you and shifts your attention away from the sharks outside the boat. So that's the lowest form of betrayal. And then in the unaware betrayal, I want to add another section. That's this one. It's when the betrayal comes out of personal interest disguised as ideological reasoning that justifies your discomfort with a certain idea, but you're kind of unaware that you do that. So the example I have is that when Jews came to the rabbis before the Holocaust and asked them, hey, should we make aliyah? A lot of rabbis felt threatened that their community would dissolve, and if their community dissolves, then they're nothing. They're not rabbis anymore. What is a rabbi without a community? So what they did is like, no, you should stay here. We should focus on studying the Torah. Those who went to Zion, they're mostly communists, and I don't want you to be part of that. By the way, some could argue that the Haredi society right now does exactly the same thing by not allowing their youth to go to the army. A lot of them want to, and they go to the rabbis and they give them exactly the same excuses. This unaware betrayal, because in the end they die with their students in the Holocaust. I fear for the Hasidic community that their approach is going to turn them in a... Because if there is a shortage of manpower, those who don't contribute will probably not get as much coverage. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, that's the lowest level of betrayal, level 1, unaware. Level 2, justified betrayal. It kind of sounds, it's like leading to. It's kind of, you see what I'm doing here? So the first form of betrayal is really unaware, and then we're going closer and closer to the next level. So that justified betrayal is when you know that you are doing something that would hurt someone, your own people, right? You're poking people that are with you in the same boat, And you do that because you feel like
it's my way or the highway.
You justify yourself. So before October 7th, a lot of generals, a lot of high-ranking members in the army were like, people who serve as reservists were like, we're not going to show up. And there were people who didn't show up even on October 7th. Not many. And it's what's kind of silenced and shushed. But yes, some really did follow through. And they did that because they believe that the judicial reform is such, is against the democracy, blah, 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 that they're willing to expose themselves to the sharks. But there is another way of doing that, which is way worse, with this higher justification, is when you literally feeding the sharks, believing that you'll be able to tame the shark. So, for example, ADL, and I have a video here.
Could you talk about that Red-Green Alliance and how dangerous it is?
Well, this Red-Green Alliance started 20 years ago. They say in business, we say an overnight success takes 20 years. So we saw the Islamists immediately after 9/11. What happened after 9/11? The country was united immediately after 9/11. And by 2003, 2004, once we went to war in Iraq, you saw the country starting to split. Those who are pro-national defense were all of a sudden attracted to the Republican side, and those who really didn't really care about the national defense much started going into the Democratic Party. And we started seeing the shift in the split of the country. And so that divide became more and more and more, especially after Obama. And the years that Obama ruled, we started seeing the Islamists focusing on working with the Democratic Party to gain favor and alliances. So we saw organizations like CARE, for example, the Council on American Islamic Relations, which is a front for the Muslim Brotherhood in America, basically work with the ACLU, and you stretch your head and you think to yourself, how can CARE, what do the CARE and the ACLU have in common? But the ACLU was used as the useful idiots at the hands of Islamists with an agenda. So basically, the ACLU ended up working as the legal arm for CARE, for Council on American Islamic Relations. My organization, actforamerica.org, for those of you who do not even know I have an organization, I urge you to check it out, actforamerica.org. We were going up and fighting CARE, and we were fighting not just CARE, but we were fighting the ADL, which stood with CARE, the Anti-Defamation League. We were fighting all the Jewish leftist organization who identified as Democrats, who were basically the useful idiots propping up the socialist Democrats within the Democrat Party, thinking, no, we're going to stand with those people because we have more in common with them than we have in common with these meanie, terrible Republicans who are obsessed with national defense and fighting radical Islam and talking about the Muslim Brotherhood infiltration and domination of our country. And so by 2016, 2017, the country was so divided that the leftists and the Islamists came together like this.
ADL cooperating with CARE, with the Muslim Brotherhood. So they were feeding the sharks. They thought that if they feed the sharks wouldn't eat them. That's how idiotic they are. But it is a betrayal.
AMP was founded in 2006 and has become one of the leading groups providing anti-Zionist training and education to students and anti-Israel activists. AMP's goal is the destruction of the State of Israel. It aims to achieve this by influencing American society in 4 key areas: university campus activism, lobbying Congress, influencing left-wing intersectional politics, and turning American Jews against Israel.
It is a betrayal, and everybody knows it's a betrayal. It's their literal job. So the ADL, their job is to protect the Jewish community. And the generals, their job was to protect the Israelis. And yes, it smells more and more disgusting, doesn't it? So let's go to level 3. Opportunistic betrayal. Now, this is when some of the generals, they didn't do it out of justified cause and belief that they're going to lose democracy if the judicial system in Israel would lose a little bit of its authoritarian, unearned power. No, they did it because they got some benefits. Whether it's going to be the Americans that wanted to make sure that this area stays quiet and everything is swept under the rug, so you're going to suffer some casualties, but as long as you don't rock the boat too much, so they cooperated with them, or they literally had some relations with the sharks themselves. Well, this is level 3, opportunistic betrayal. And I think one famous example is Tucker Carlson, where he knew exactly how dangerous Islam was a couple of years ago, but suddenly, Sharia is not that bad. And another opportunistic betrayal is every guest that he brings, right? The people who say, oh, Hitler was not so bad. Or the nun and the pastors that are like, oh, Hamas are not terrorists. They're not the ones that are hurting Christians when they are. And it's opportunistic betrayal, because to them, by the way, it's opportunistic betrayal and not the next form of betrayal, but it's on the edge. So the next form of betrayal, level 4, the reason I say it's on the edge is because I think that due to some Christians being under the jurisdiction of Muslims, the claim could be that we're trying to protect them and we're going to do whatever we have to do to protect the Christians that are under the Palestinian Authority or under Hamas authority. So even if it means whitewashing our persecutors, it's opportunistic, but it's not necessarily a cold betrayal, which is level 4 betrayal. Now, if all those betrayals until now sounded really bad to you, just wait for the next 2 levels. So a cold betrayal is that if something happens to your group, to those you're supposed to be protecting, to those who you supposedly care about, you literally don't care at all. For example, Amal Clooney. Amal Clooney is half Druze. What did she have to say about the Druze massacre in Sweden? Absolutely nothing. She had nothing to say. The woman is a human rights lawyer. What does she do? She's clearly opportunistic, right? Because she represents those cases that go a little bit against her people. A lot, all right? So the people she's supporting, the people she ruined Lebanon. It's opportunistic, but then you can say like, okay, it's not a big deal. It's exaggerated, blah, blah, blah. But when her people were literally slaughtered, she gives 0 F's about. And that's a person who calls themselves a human rights activist and lawyer. Except when the Druze get butchered, suddenly that doesn't matter, does it? The next example of cold betrayal is way closer to level 5 of kind of betrayal. See, on October 7th, there were a lot of Jewish students that were amazed and shocked by the anti-Semitism that had erupted. But many, many of them had realized something very simple. There is somebody that is even lower in the food chain than them. So what did they do? They disclosed and they outed Israelis on campus. The reason I remember that is because I went through some of my old materials and checked this out. I found this tweet by a girl, an Israeli girl that went to Columbia University, who literally described how Jews, American Jews, pointed out the Israelis for the mob to come and attack them. Some of them carried a knife. That is a cold betrayal, 100%, but it is getting closer and closer to the next level. Level 5, the ultimate betrayal. Now, all those betrayals thus far sound awful. I was like, what could top that? Well, brace yourselves. So let's start with Laith al-Balus. Now, how much of his story is true and how much it is not, I'm not sure, but the story is pretty simple. We're talking about somebody who goes around the world claiming to represent the Druze in Sweden while he was excommunicated several times from several groups in Sweden, because even though he led the charge, so I've read somewhere, to Damascus, it was clear kind of fast that he's cooperating with the forces of Jolani. So even though the Druze had a lot to do with liberating Damascus, it was given away to jihadists who committed awful atrocities to the Druze communities in the north of Syria and Idlib. So he started going around and saying, yes, how much the Druze want to cooperate with the new regime. And not only that, he opened the roads for them. They killed and butchered and raped and looted. And he also executed 6 Druze all by himself in 2022, but you get my gist. This guy, ultimate betrayal. But of course, this is not the only example I have for you on level 5, because next to him, I want to give the honor of achieving an even bigger and more grandiose style of betrayal towards their own people, is another Druze leader, and that is Wali Jumblat. Wali Jumblat, who would sell his entire community to the... I don't think even you have to pay that much, honestly, it's that cheap. By the way, he talks shit about Israel day in, day out, but when he was fighting the Christian Maronites in the Mount of Lebanon, they almost, there was a point where he was trapped and they encircled him and almost got him, and he begged to the Israeli soldiers that were there to come and save him, begged on his knees, I love you so much, please save me. And then they escorted him out so he wouldn't get lynched. Too bad, because this kind of ultimate betrayal material, they betray everything and everyone. And he betrays the Druze community again and again and again and again and again, cooperating with every force, Hezbollah, the Sunnah, the Shiites, whatever forces, no matter how terroristic they are, no matter how, anything and anyone he would cooperate with for his own interest, while throwing his community to the trenches. Now, I don't want to say the Druze are the most... I don't want to give all the titles of the ultimate betrayal to the Druze, because, the Druze are fine, but the Jews, they do everything better. So I want to give the second highest, now listen closely, because there's going to be one more person. I want to take a moment and highlight Yoel Teitelbaum, the Satmar Rebbe. Let me read his story. So Yoel Teitelbaum, the Satmar Rebbe. You sweetheart, that guy, he deserves the title of ultimate betrayal. But second place. Here is some background. So born in Hungary, Yoel Teitelbaum became the rabbi of Satmar in 1929. Satmar is in Romania. Fiercely anti-Zionist, he believed that any attempt to establish a Jewish state before the Messiah arrival was a rebellion against God. In this article published in 1935 in the local newspaper in Yiddish, it says that Yoel's followers are violent towards those who disagree with them, and allegedly they were even willing to murder to get their way. By 1936, he became the closest thing a rabbi can be to a dictator. The Holocaust. During the war, he tried to escape in many different ways, but he didn't budge when it comes to his principles, and those principles had killed those who tried to help him several times. A group of followers tried to get him across the border, so they brought a car, but he refused, held them back, and eventually doomed them to death. In 1944, Hungary's Jews faced deportation to Auschwitz. Rudolf Kastner, a Zionist negotiator, struck a deal with Adolf Eichmann. A train of 1,600 Jews would be spared in exchange for money, valuables, and promises of silence. Of course, they almost diverted the Kastner train and sent everyone there to annihilation as well. And one historian claims that during that happening, Yoel Tintelbaum begged that he would be saved. He was willing to sacrifice the rest of the train for himself. After sacrificing his community to the gas chambers while saving his own skin, he moved to Israel in 1946. So the dates here are a bit confusing, but it seems like he moved to Israel in 1945 or 1946. He moved to the United States a year later. He had created this whole obsessive cult-like community that is anti-Zionist in its nature and goes against the state of Israel. The state of Israel that he had no qualms of using for his own survival and benefit. It's just that he is the only one that deserves survival. His community burnt, gassed. He saved himself. The country fights for its survival. Protected him as well. Fights against it. Truly a disgusting man with a cult-like following. Now notice, I placed this guy higher than Laith al-Baous or Walid Jumblat. He cooperated with the Nazis to save himself. Walid Jumblat and Laith al-Baous, they reached out to the Nazis because the Nazis had money and were like, oh, you guys have money. I'll cooperate with you. So you can say there are wars, but the reason I placed him higher is because he built a whole theology around betrayal. And that brings me to number one. Number one, the king of betrayal. The king of betrayal. The title king fits him very much. King Charles. Now, King Charles? What did he do? What you cannot say about Mr. Yoel Tintelbaum. I don't want to give him the title rabbi. I don't think he deserves it. But he was a rabbi. He used Judaism, though in a very screwed way, to justify himself. But you know, you can find the cracks in every ideology to justify your selfishness, I guess. So in a sense, he didn't betray Judaism itself. He just made it accommodating to himself. A little bit like a certain other king did when he wanted to get divorced. Still church, still Christian. Just a little bit of a different approach that was adopted. But King Charles is the head of the Church of England. Didn't find something in Christianity to justify his behavior. No, no, no. He goes and attends a mosque. He hosts Ramadan events. He forgets about Christian events. And he doesn't even try to dress it up as something that is out of Christianity. Because no, he's not the leader of the church anymore. He is the leader of all faiths, and in particular, Islam. King Charles is killing a civilization completely. What he does, what he's doing, is unforgivable. You see, people die and give birth. Yes, somebody betrayed them, but they have the ability to resist and fight on and excommunicate that idiot. The rabbi? Yeah, he created a cult, but even that cult is starting to understand that they don't want to go against Israel, definitely not if it means to side with the Palestinians. Even they are re-examining some of their belief systems because they stayed Jewish. King Charles, that death of him leading his country, his civilization, towards an anti-civilization trajectory, It's not a degraded form of Christianity. It's not something that could be fixed. It is the anti-civilization forces that he's joining hands with. The ruin and devastation that could bring is unfixable. So King Charles, as a king, you are also the king of betrayal. And what makes it the ultimate betrayal is that he betrays himself. All the others, they got something out of it. Yes, Yoel Titeban was an asshole, but he survived. He did everything for himself. But it's human nature. Laith al-Balus, Walid Jumblat, oh, they get clout, they get money. By the way, Laith al-Balus, nobody even, he was unbearable. He was excommunicated because he had a terrible personality, it seems like, anyway. So, of course, it's kind of explainable that he would go against those who don't want to be associated with him. Walid Jumblat, he just likes money. That's all. That's all he cares about. It's you can say it's the fault of the Lebanese Druze for following this corrupt person. But King Charles, he betrays himself. He goes with those who would kill him. He goes with those who would kill his dynasty. And when I say kill, I don't mean they would stop being royalty. The ultimate betrayal. And he does it at scale. All right. Thank you for being here. Like, comment, subscribe. Please consider, I think, if I make it in time, then it's going to be maybe the last couple of days to be able to sign up to my course, Understanding Humanity, where I really dive into what makes you, your priorities, how you can fight back against those global trends that we're seeing, and how you can fight back against that betrayal that is from oozing out of everywhere, as well as understanding how religion works, culture, and geopolitics. If you want to make a change, I would recommend sign up now, because I really hope I make it in time and you can still join the course. I'm going to start soon in September, so join in. All right. Other than that, comment, like, subscribe, share with your friends and family. And I hope that we would understand how to treat those treacherous betrayals properly. Thank you for being here and thank you for watching. See you later.